Hey guys, it's Luke and this is my Valkyrie guide. Season 9 has been out for a few days now. It came with a new permanent game mode, new patch notes, and most importantly, time to learn the new Legend Valkyrie. Valkyrie is the daughter of a pilot called Viper, who was part of the pilot group Apex Predators. She turned her dad's old Titan into a wingsuit, which she is now bringing into the Apex games. This video is meant to have everything you need to learn and eventually master Valkyrie. I will start by explaining each one of her abilities and how to use them. Then I will give some tips and tricks, as well as the fastest ways to learn Valkyrie, because she takes some time to get used to. She also has a very high skill ceiling, meaning she has a ton of potential when mastered. Before we start, this video took a lot of work, so I would love it if you could like and subscribe. Starting off with Valkyrie's passives, she actually has 3. She's a recon legend, so she can scan the survey beacons around the map, and has another recon-like ability where she gets her own special UI when flying, in which it highlights enemies. This ability activates whenever you're flying. That includes from jump towers and of course her ultimate, which I will get to later. To use this ability to its full potential, you should always be free looking. Looking all around when you jump out of the dropship as Valkyrie will give you and your team the best idea of where every enemy is. With that being said, this ability is super useful for scouting areas with the jump tower. If you take the jump tower, you can see where everything is and then just come back to the ground. You can even repeat the process if you need more information. Her last passive ability, and the one that makes her so fun to play, is her jump jets. Her jump jets allow you to soar off the ground for as long as you are using them. The only caveat is that they have a fuel reserve, which is used up the longer you use the jets. Here are some things you should know when using them. The fuel reserves will start replenishing 8 seconds after you stop using the jets. You can't use any weapons or grenades while in the air, but you can use her tactical. Also, if you are in the air and you want to stay at the same height while losing less fuel, you can toggle the jump jets on and off. Let's talk about when to use these jump jets. Valkyrie's jump jets are by far the most fun and useful part of her kit. They allow you to be mobile and get to many different positions throughout the course of a fight. The main downside to the jump jets is that they're slow and you're very vulnerable while in the air. You never want to use them for long periods of time in a fight, or pretty much at all if an opponent is looking at you. They're just way too slow to be a useful escape tool or way to get in an enemy's face. That does not mean that they are not useful in fights though. The jets allow you to reposition and get better vantage points with ease. My biggest advice for a Valkyrie player is to always be moving with the jets, but not in long moments. Use short bursts to get around and confuse your enemy. Valkyrie is also very good when there is a piece of cover in between you and your enemy. She can use her jump jets to fly over at any second, which is super helpful. The last Valkyrie jetpack tip is that if there is a tall building or tree and your opponent is around the base of it, you can fly up it and drop down, confusing your enemy for easy shots. So to recap, use Valkyrie's jump jets in short bursts to reposition, but never for too long because they are loud and easy to get shot in. I will also be giving a few tips and tricks for special movement techniques you can do with the jump jets later in the video. The next section in my Valkyrie guide is going to be on how to use her tactical. Valkyrie's tactical is a cluster missile launcher that launches 12 missiles in a 4x3 grid. Enemies hit by a rocket will take 25 damage, plus another 3 damage for each rocket they were hit by, and also receive a stun effect as if you stuck them with an arc star. Another thing to note is that the rockets hit the ground in the same pattern that Bangalore's ult does, with each row of rockets landing and exploding one at a time. That means if you want to hit your opponent as quick as possible, you should aim the front row on them. You can use the cluster missiles while on the ground or in the air, but it is clear that the developers meant for Valkyrie's jump jets and cluster missiles to be used together. The most effective way to use the missiles is by boosting into the air for a second so you can aim the missiles and fire them. A helpful thing to know is that immediately after you shoot the missiles, you can turn away while the animation is still going, and they will still go exactly where you aim them. You can shoot the missiles at a surprisingly far range, especially if you are in the air, but I do not recommend using the missiles on a faraway opponent unless they are one shot. The reason for this is that the effects are not enough to matter unless they are right there to capitalize. The stun only lasts a few seconds, and the enemy can just pop a cell to get back to full health. Her tactical is deadly at close range if you use it right though. If you and your opponent know where each other are, but don't have a line of sight, that is the perfect time to use it. You just jet up, launch the missiles, and they will have no time to avoid it. They'll be stunned and you can move in to finish the kill. The other great time to use Valkyrie's tactical is when an opponent is pushing you. You never even have to show yourself to the enemy, you can just launch it in front of you and break their push. The biggest mistake you can make when using Valk's tactical is thinking that just because you hit someone with it, or even an entire team, that you can just push in and win the fight. If you miss the time when the target is stunned, you missed your opportunity. Valkyrie's ultimate is called Skyward and works exactly like the name suggests. It's on a 120-second cooldown, which is relatively short when it comes to ultimates. For reference, it is on the same cooldown timer as Horizon's Black Hole. Skyward allows you and your teammates to launch into the air and go into dive mode. How it works is as soon as you press the button to activate the ability, there is a period of time where your character is completely still waiting for it to charge. This lasts for about 3 seconds, and during that time, your teammates can latch on with you. Then when you are ready to launch, you press the input and you and whoever else was latched on will go flying straight up into the air and then will be able to glide. Just for reference, you go about 20% higher than taking a jump tower. Valkyrie's ultimate ability is a strong tool, but also leaves you very exposed. You should never be using this ability on low health because it is very easy to get shot down, and you should also never be using this ability in the middle of a fight. It doesn't do much for you and lets your opponent get easy shots. The other big mistake I see Valkyries making is using this ability to get into fights solo. If Valkyrie uses this ability solo, there is a very large gap between her and her teammates. It's not even worth it for flanking or getting behind the enemies because of the long dive trail and audio cues, so your opponent will know right where you're landing. This is a team-oriented ability and should be used with the team. Using Skyward as a full team is helpful because it opens up more options for what you can do with it. For example, it pairs nicely with her passive that highlights enemies. Something I love to do is if you can identify where all 3 members of a team are as you are flying in, one will almost always be split and you can simply land on that player's head and they will have not a chance of surviving, and then you have an easy 3v2. This ability is also obviously useful for rotating and getting out of fights. I know I said earlier not to use it in a fight, and I stand by that. What I mean is if you and your team want to get out of a fight, say zones coming in or third parties keep rolling in, you can meet up somewhere out of the way and use Skyward to get into zone. You can then hold the teams you are fighting or even go back in and third party them. The great thing about Valkyrie's ultimate is that no one can follow out of fights, unlike Octane's jump pad or Pathfinder's zipline, so you will have guaranteed time to heal up and reset. Just make sure you have time and are healthy when you use Skyward. Next is the fun section, tips and tricks. Valkyrie has a ton of special movement she can do because of her jets, and I've been trying to find every tip and trick that I haven't already mentioned to put in this section. 1. You can use her jump jets to not get fall stunned. If you fall from a tall place, you can use a slight burst from the jets right before you hit the ground to not get the fall animation that stops you for a second. This also means that whenever you fly way up into the air, make sure you conserve a tiny amount of fuel so when you fall back to the ground, you can activate the jets right before you hit the ground and avoid being stunned. 2. Holding down the cluster missiles while in the air will allow you to conserve way more fuel than normal. This is useful if you need to cross a large space like the chasm at Airbase and going between buildings at Bonsai Plaza. 3. You can use Valkyrie's jets to get a low gravity effect on ziplines. If you use her passive right before you do a zipline jump, it gives you a slow fall effect. This could be useful for trick shotting, but is actually more useful to know so you can avoid doing it in game. The slow fall makes you easier to hit than normal. 4. Like Horizon's Lift, Valkyrie can avoid nades, Gibby ults, Bangalore ults, Fuse tacticals, and even her own tactical by using her jump jets to get above and therefore out of range of said spam. 5. Valk's jump jets can work almost identical to tap strafes in the way you can change direction almost instantly. How it works is when you're in the air and want to change directions, just tap jump so the jump jets come on and shift directions. You can also do this multiple times for a strafe. 6. When using Valkyrie's passive, it tells you the exact distance between you and the enemies scanned. With that being said, it is still hard to tell where the enemies are with multiple triangles and things in your UI, but the scanned enemies will also appear on your minimap. This will help you tell exactly where they are and how you should approach the fight. 7. You can change the button that activates the jump jets from toggle to hold. Some people like hold more because it gives more control. I would definitely at least try hold out and see if you like it. 8. Valkyrie's jump jets have 2 modes that you can toggle while using them. On top of the original flight mode, you can change the jets so that they will only move horizontally and not up and down. 9. If you're in the air with Valkyrie and pull out her missiles but don't actually fire them, the only way to cancel them is by meleeing. This will also stop your jump jets for a split second, but right after you can keep using them. 10. If you want to be able to b-hop on Valkyrie, change your crouch bind from toggle to hold. The last section in this video is how you can learn Valkyrie and become good with her. Good Valkyries are hard to fight against, but the problem is that it takes time and practice more so than other legends to get comfortable on Valkyrie. So here are my tips. First is to put in time in the firing range. Get good doing quick direction changes with her jetpack and aiming her missiles. This will help you in real games to strafe with the jump jets and get those good quick cluster missile shots. You also need to adjust your strafe when you play Valkyrie. Get good at mixing your jump jets into your normal slide jump strafe. You can use the jets to change directions quickly so your opponent will never know where you will be. Another thing that you need to practice with Valkyrie is doing wall jumps. Because of her jump jets, you will need to time to jump on the wall perfectly. That means PC players, you cannot use scroll wheel jump. After you know how to wall jump, you can practice wall jumping into using jets to get over walls and change directions quickly. Using her jets in combination with other difficult movement techniques will help in real games to be able to use her jump jets quickly and precisely. That was my ultimate Valkyrie guide. I hoped you learned everything you needed to know about Valkyrie. I encourage you to like and subscribe, and also to visit my channel because I have other content that I know will be helpful. My videos also don't get recommended, so if you want to know when I upload more content like this, I would turn on the notification bell. Thank you for watching.